Hi everyone, how you doing? Good to be back, guys. Thanks so much for picking up the slack while I take care of the family health issues here.
No problem.
Continue, it's crazy. I'll tell you, things can change in your world very quickly. So be very thankful for what you have every day. So anyway, you guys have something to talk about while I get my notes together here.
Go ahead. My phone just rang and it was playing.
No, I was going to say, Mike brought up, yeah, we have one thing we could talk about. Mike, you said the Yankees are interviewing Carlos Beltran to be their manager. And last night I played a prank on Facebook. I said, hey, I really like who the Yankees signed as their new manager. And I put that his last name was Ninguno. And Ninguno in Spanish means no one. Because they don't have a manager.
Yeah, they've been doing a painstaking search. They're on manager number 6, and what they're doing, is they're interviewing these managers for like 6 hours straight. And then they
holding them under a floodlight.
Yeah, they're asking it, is it safe? And they're pulling their teeth. So basically, after this 6-hour extravaganza, they put the person make them available to the media. And then after they get through all their candidates, they're going to narrow it down to 3 and then take them down to Tampa where they have their practice facility. And I don't know if they're doing like a cooking show, like a Chopped type of thing or whatever. But that's the procedure they're going through to get their manager. But experience behind the bench doesn't seem to be a problem because they've interviewed Aaron Boone, who's a commentator and a former player, and Carlos Beltran just played in the World Series a month ago. So
why don't they just hire all 6?
There you go. There you go. A 6-pack of managers.
Yeah.
Add one more and have one for each day.
Why not? I do tell you this, guys. Well, this past weekend, I took my family to a tournament out on Long Island, and I went up to your neck of the woods there, Russ. I went up to Queens. We did go to the Muppet Museum, which was Muppet exhibit, which was really cool.
Oh, that sounds great. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we went to the Bronx Zoo, which I've never been to.
Really? You've never been?
Never been to the Bronx Zoo. Quite a zoo. I mean, huge.
It's amazing.
Was Reggie Jackson there?
All right. No, it was good. It's good to get my son outside. We wheeled him around, and it was fun. The Bronx Zoo is it's huge. It's huge and hilly. It's a workout to wheel somebody around the Bronx Zoo. They have good, but yeah, I was really impressed. I never been there before.
I've driven by it about 10 times because it's right on the way to Yankee Stadium.
So wait, you've never been to the Bronx Zoo either?
I've never been to the Bronx Zoo.
Oh my God, I went there so many times as a kid. I've been there as an adult. It is one of the best you could ever go to as far as a zoo because they not only have like great grounds and everything, but they really do really great research and they have good programs. Not every run-of-the-mill zoo does that. And sometimes they're just like a zoo that just literally got the animals trapped there in captivity, and I'm not thrilled.
And a plaque.
Yeah, the Bronx Zoo does a lot more than that, so I give them credit.
Yeah, no, their gorilla thing that they have going on is phenomenal. Like just watching a whole presentation on what they've done and how they've helped, repopulate, which is really what zoos are best at. There's my son is a huge animal advocate, so we go to every possible zoo, aquarium, anywhere you can imagine. And so I've been to tons of them, and so that's why when we were this close, we're like, well, we got to go to the Bronx Zoo. And
how did you rate it?
It was up there. Yeah. I mean, it's one of the most underrated zoos. I mean, just in the country, I went to a couple years ago, was in St. Louis, the St. Louis Zoo, which is mostly free. It's an interesting zoo. It's mostly free, and you pay for certain exhibits a little bit at a time. It's kind of cool. But this zoo I rank right up there. I mean, it's
yeah, I've been to Washington where I went to for like the panda exhibit, which was great.
National Zoo in Washington is free and anything.
The Buffalo Zoo is small, but it's pretty good. It's pretty good. It has a good reputation. I know the Toronto Zoo is monstrous.
Yeah, Toronto Zoo is amazing. I'm a real big fan of small zoos. We have one in Norristown here over in Pennsylvania called the Elmwood Park Zoo, which is really cool. And a lot of these, I'm a real big fan of zoos that are mainly there as animal rehabilitation places and people get animals back out.
Yeah.
Which is what a lot of the zoos are now. I mean, my son studied a lot of this. He studied, that right now there are currently more Indian tigers in zoos than there are in the wild. and they're doing a good job at some. You know, there's about 5,000 Indian tigers in the wild.
What, Bengal tigers?
Yeah, Bengal tigers. Yep.
Okay.
India, and yeah, because there's only tigers in India and tigers in Russia, Siberian tigers. So yeah. So yeah, it's pretty. And there are good things of zoos. You know, there are definitely good parts of zoos.
Oh yeah.
There's no question that. But you know, I thought the Bronx one was interesting. It has, and what I like about it too, Russ, is they give the animals. There's lots of space. There is
a lot of space. There's a lot more than you think could be there,
which is incredible for the big. It is the biggest zoo in an urban area in the country.
Yes.
And you know, when you think about the amount of money that the amount of real estate that the elephants get there, you know, they're talking about millions and millions of dollars worth of real estate there. No question.
Yeah, but it is the Bronx. It's not Manhattan.
But it's still New York, and it really takes a lot of donors to make that happen. Like even, heck, I'm not sure if you've been to the Central Park Zoo. That's really good too.
I have been there, and it is really good. It's small and really neat.
I've never been to Central Park.
Oh wow! Hey, you something.
Wow, I don't even know what to say, Mike. Like,
yeah. No question about that. You got to check out that. All right, let's get going here. We got some stuff to talk about. All right, here we go. Hello, Hockey World. It's Tuesday, November 28th, 2017.
I am the well-traveled Michael Agello.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Eklund. You're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This podcast comes every Monday through Friday at this time to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world. And a couple of fun things I've picked up over the last weeks and a couple of weeks I've been sort of in and out here. I wanted to talk about today. A couple little rumors that are popping around. Today is an interesting one, and I'll have the rumor chart tonight. So it should be up some point late tonight or tomorrow morning. You'll be able to see it, the beginnings of it at least. I've been working on it a lot over the last couple of days. Mm-hmm. And Erik Gudbranson is the latest name that's been popping up a lot. You know, he's an interesting player. He's been hurt a couple times this year. So injuries have definitely affected his trade ability, but he's now back up. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think the thing that, I mean, first of all, he's not a popular one with the analytics crowd. I remember when the trade between Florida and Vancouver happened, and it was during the playoffs, which was unusual. And I think it was Jared McCann was involved in that deal for Gudbranson, and I was sitting with a couple of people at a Toronto Marlies game who were more analytically tuned, and they were like, "Oh my God, how stupid is Jim Benning trading Gudbranson?" And Gudbranson's a good defenseman. He's not a numbers guy. He's a big, tough, relatively mobile right-hand shot defenseman.
And he can penalty kill. And I think for teams that are looking for defensive help, his situation is he's an RFA. I think he's 1 year away from free agency, unrestricted free agency. Yep. He's going to be looking for that big contract, and that's probably why Vancouver is looking to trade him, because maybe they think that the amount that he's going to ask for, which is probably in the $5 million range, is probably too much for primarily a defensive defenseman. As a rental. Now he might be an RFA, he might be a UFA. I think he might be a UFA. And if that's the case, it's purely a rental. But he's a right-hand shot defensemen do not grow on trees. He's big, he's tough. A playoff-bound team is going to be interested in him. Yep. Of course, his name came up, and immediately, and Russ said before the show when we were talking, any defenseman that comes up, Toronto is going to be rumored to be involved because they're looking for defensemen, and I wouldn't doubt that Gudbranson is on their radar if he is available. I just remembered the overreaction when Gudbranson, that trade happened, and I said, listen, Gudbranson can play, and people were like, oh my God, but Jared McCann, and I'm like, listen, Jared McCann's an okay prospect. He is. There's some things I like, but he got rushed, and so people definitely overreacted, and right now, McCann's got 7 points in 12 games, and last year he had 7 points in 29 games. Like he's a developing prospect. He's not a superstar.
Yeah,
and
he's an RFA. RFA this year, UFA next year, I believe.
Yeah, and if you think about it, they're probably on the same sort of path. McCann as a forward and Gudbranson as a defenseman, as far as where they sort of fit in the world. And so Gudbranson on the right team could play a top four. He is tough. He does skate fairly well. I mean, he's not the best skater, but he's a decent enough skater, and he hits like a ton of bricks. Like he will be an attractive guy to get, especially in the playoffs when things tighten up a bit and the physical play really helps you.
And the reason why Vancouver probably wants to trade him is because Troy Stetcher is coming up as an RFA. They might want to lock him up long term, and they probably need the cap space. Now, they've got the Sedins as UFAs, but Russ and I have talked about this. More than likely, the Sedins have made no hint that they want to leave Vancouver. In fact, they've sent the signal they want to stay in Vancouver. Probably at a reduced rate, but still, even if they take a pay cut, they're going to be paid $3.5 million or $4 million a year. So they'll save some cap room, but not a ton, which might not allow them to spend the money on Gudbranson that he wants and sign Stetcher to a long-term deal too.
If I were the agent, I would. If I were betting, I would call the agent, and I'm sure it's one agent for the two of them, and I would just give them the combined total. Like, this is what we're giving you guys. And that's it. We're paying you the same. Every year's a 1-year deal. Every year we'll talk about you coming back. And that's the way I would do it.
Right. Peter Chiarelli just spoke. I'm getting some texts from people about this. Just gave a press conference. One of the things, it's rare when your GM came out yesterday and said, I will be talking to the media tomorrow morning. That's what he did. So
he let them know.
You let them know ahead of time. So this is not like an impromptu press conference. This is
right. This is not like Ron Hextall just chatting at the Flyers game tonight. Let's say.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. This is Peter Chiarelli, and he heard a lot of questions. And Chiarelli's an interesting character because personality-wise, he's got his pluses and minuses. People have very strong opinions on Peter Chiarelli. I don't know if you found this to be the case, but I find that there's some people who think Chiarelli is an incredible GM and has done an incredible job, and I tend to be on that. I tend to be more towards Chiarelli as a really good GM. I wouldn't call him incredible, but I think he's done a really good job, and I don't necessarily blame him for what's happened since he got to Edmonton. And I thought he did an incredible job in Boston. Now, and in Boston, though, the current Boston regime just couldn't stand him, and that was a huge issue. And they've sort of tried to undo everything he did.
Well, I mean, because the perception was the same perception that you have, Ak, is that Chiarelli did a great job, and there was no credit given to them as the support structure. So it was sort of like he got all the cred.
Yeah.
And in Edmonton right now, the thing is, honestly, is like, you look at what he's done, and there's some moves that I say, okay, that's good, but I keep getting stuck on Hall for Larson.
Well, I mean, but it did. I get why you're getting stuck on it. In the end, though, it did help both teams. It's not like it hurt the Oilers more than it helped somebody else or vice versa. It helped both teams. Now, you could say the Devils are getting a little extra out of it. That's fine.
Well, what I get stuck on is if you can't get a legitimate top pairing defenseman for a top 10 scoring first overall pick like Taylor Hall, then then it's impossible to get a top pairing defenseman.
Well, you know what it is? I think we go back to what we defaulted to yesterday with the Jordan Eberle quotes that basically were saying how much pressure these guys are under in Edmonton. Like, at some point, they just need to get out if they're not fully successful. And I think
Taylor Hall
is at that point.
The bullet Hall dodged, Taylor Hall dodged. He's just starting to understand it. I mean, I've talked to people around him and stuff like that, and I mean, that's not to say anything bad against Edmonton because it's an incredible hockey city.
Sure.
But the pressure there and the position of Taylor Hall being what he was, which was the guy until Connor McDavid came along, and now and then you're the second guy there, and. Under him, and McDavid is an interesting kind of superstar. We're learning a lot. I think we're learning a lot more about McDavid than people realize right now. People don't seem to want to take shots at McDavid right now because he's still putting up points. He's still incredible and all that stuff.
Well, some people are starting to. There was a very interesting Mark Spector column on Sportsnet last week that was basically saying McDavid's got to be McDavid. And, I sort of agree. Now I'm not criticizing McDavid.
What does that mean, though? I mean, really, what does that really mean?
Well, because he was so dominant last year. Actually, 100-point scorer, Hart Trophy winner. That team cannot operate with him being just okay or good or ordinary. They need him to be that type of player because, honestly, there's not enough secondary support there for that team to have success if McDavid isn't the superstar that he has been.
Right. So here's a couple things I would say to contrast that article. The first one is, Wayne Gretzky didn't win the Stanley Cup every year, and eventually Wayne Gretzky was surrounded with some amazing, amazing talent. McDavid's got 30 points in 24 games.
Yeah.
So if this is him playing badly, I think he's muddling his way through.
Yeah, I mean, but there was a window there where he was not playing well. Now the one thing
isn't he human? I mean,
yes,
when did he turn into a cyborg?
I think that I'm not even going to talk about his play. I think his play. I mean, he is going to score points. He's going to be amazing.
Sure.
Is he going to score 100 points or is he going to score 80 points? It really isn't going to change whether they make the playoffs or not. That's like, I mean, it's exciting and interesting, but it's not going to change whether they make the playoffs. I don't think. I
think the 20 points would make a difference. I do.
Right now, it wouldn't, right? So, I mean, if he was the thing is this. I mean, he is not making the players around him better. The reality is that when I look at this team, I don't see. There was a period of time when he was, but right now, he's not. And
he is only 20, and I'm not sure it's fair to say as a 20-year-old he should be making players better.
Well, this is what. Sorry, go ahead.
I think third year. I think it is. I mean, I think
it's still early in his career. Like, I think that's a premature thing to expect. I think if we go back and look at Crosby, it didn't happen overnight as far as him making players better either. It may have happened by his second or third season, but I still think Crosby is probably a notch ahead of McDavid so far, and we'll see if McDavid.
Well, didn't he win a Stanley Cup in his third season? I mean,
honestly, I don't think. Up until recently, I don't think Crosby hit. That was always the label against Crosby. He needed. No. It was weird. It was weird players like Kunitz or Pascal Dupuis that he gelled with. But when they put star players with him, like a Ginla, when they got him.
Well, that's fair. That was the Crosby criticism. That's fair.
Well, the hosts did work pretty well. There were. This is the thing. I mean, Crosby, it's not making players better. Does not like a Rob Brown or Kevin Stevens thing I'm talking about. Where your plays like scoring 50 points. We're talking about your team in general, your entire team, especially when you're captain. And Crosby does make his entire team better, and always has. Like his leadership and his ability to, And I am not getting a sense from talking to people that McDavid is in that world. That I do get that from talking to people about Austin Matthews all the time. Austin Matthews all the time. I get that about Jack Eichel. That he's doing that.
Well, Jack Eichel would sue for lack of support right now, but
but I still think that there's a certain thing. Let me go into some of Chiarelli's quotes here because there's something. All right, so Chiarelli, he basically says, first of all, he says you have to look at teams like the Kings, the Lightning, the Jets, etc. They didn't panic last year, and now they're good teams this year. We will take that approach. He's saying he's calling it death by 1,000 cuts.
Right.
Says there are potential moves in the works, but no easy solutions. The broader picture.
Okay, with all three of those teams, there was injury at the heart of their failure. Quick in Los Angeles, guys like Tyler Myers in Winnipeg, who was an important part of their, or perceived to be an important part of their defense, and Stamkos with Tampa. Where is the injury loss here with the Edmonton Oilers? This is not the reason for their failure is not the lack of one player on that roster. It's the fact that the players that they have available are not doing the job and living up to the expectations. I mean, Todd McClellan has continually, up until the last few games, played Draisaitl with McDavid, putting all his eggs in one basket. And if you shut down that pairing, you shut down the Oilers. In the last couple games, he's moved Draisaitl to the number 2 slot at center, moved Nugent Hopkins to number 3, and they've had a little more success. That's what they need to keep doing. The problem is that I don't know if they have the wingers that can score the goals with those centers to turn the thing around and get them in the playoffs. I mean, they're 6-7 points out of a playoff spot right now.
Yeah, I mean, people are comparing them to the Ducks from last year, right? Where, the Ducks were basically in the same spot at this point last year that they were in right now. And I think, right around December 1st, they took over, right? The Ducks, that was right about when they went crazy.
Yeah, Getzlaf had one goal up until New Year's, and then he turned it around.
Right.
As soon as I started complaining about him, he started scoring.
That's true. You should start complaining about McDavid today. Maybe, who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he says there are a lot of things not going right at this point. We're trying to work our way through them. We're not going to make any changes. We've got some things, some possibilities, but we're not going to rush anything. We're not going to. He's basically saying he's going to get his top players, what they need to succeed, and we're not going to trade away top players for parts that could work long term.
Which means he's getting nothing in trade offers. Which means he's probably getting.
I don't know if it means that. I think what it means is
or not
telling the guys it's on them, and hey, if the season goes awry, it's on you. Like, I can't do much else.
Well, the question is that who will be the one to blame if this team misses the playoffs? Who will be the one to blame? And obviously,
I think it'll be the coach.
Yeah, the first guy is going to take the hit is McClellan, and I don't think that's right, but that's the reality here. With Draisaitl locked up on a long-term deal, with McDavid's 12.5 kicking in next year, with all the defensemen, Russell, Clefbaum, Larson, all signed to long-term deals, it's going to be the coach that takes the axe.
Yeah, there's no question.
No, I think that's got to be the way. I myself would not be opposed to that, honestly. I think McClellan, I don't think he is the right coach for this team right now. I mean, I'm not an anti-McClellan person in general. I mean, I thought he did a great job for years. Yeah,
but at some point, okay.
I don't buy the at some point thing, because this has nothing to do. Like, you can flip a coin 100 times. It's gonna come up heads or tails every time, regardless. Like, you can't look back at the other changes you made and say, we fired that coach Chiarelli, we fired that coach Chiarelli, we fired that coach Chiarelli. You have to look at where you are right now and what's happening right now.
I think it's still early, and believe it or not, I know people probably think McDavid's a complete player. He's not to what he is going to be. We don't know what he is going to be.
Right.
And I think there could be a coach that could draw more out of him for sure. And I think that's probably what they're going to do, is get that next coach. Because here's the problem. I mean, again, when you make that much money in any league, Crosby aside, most of these guys, and really Malkin aside, Malkin's the one, he's got the best job in the NHL because he's one of the top 6-7 salaries, and he gets no pressure. Like, there's almost no – Crosby takes all that pressure, and there's none for him. But every other team that's paying a guy around $9.5 to $11 million has a lot of pressure on them. And they're always going to be looked as coach killers if they don't win and they aren't successful. And it's not fair, but it is what happens. And that's what Ovechkin has gone through. Malkin hasn't gone through it because of Crosby. And in another year, if McDavid misses this year, and all of a sudden they were to start off slow, or maybe it didn't work out great next year, he'd probably start getting that tag, even the great Connor McDavid. It's what happens.
McDavid's still on the entry-level deal, and Carey Price is still on his last deal, and they're feeling the pressure of the big contracts even before the contract kicks in.
Yes.
Yeah. No, and that's the case, and that's always going to be the case with top players like this, right? So that's the reality of this.
Yeah, like I said, Crosby is the only one in this era that I've seen sort of escape that, except for the 2 years ago where he wasn't playing great for a little bit of a short term, and some people were chirping, but other than that, he's really been able to be pretty sheltered from that too.
Yeah. No, I agree. I do agree with that. I'm really,
and actually, and I'll take it back. And Rick Nash at this point is sheltered from it because of complete apathy, not because of
I guess so. I mean, and also because
it's apathy at this point. I mean,
Roberto Luongo's there, right? So he's always going to take it. I mean, Luongo's going to take the pressure in New York.
No, Luongo.
I'm sorry, not Luongo.
Yes.
No, we know what you meant.
Luongo.
Yeah.
Sorry, like I said, I've been in one room 3 weeks. All right, so.
Let's talk about the Philly-Pittsburgh game last night.
Yeah, that game had so much going on.
Yeah, and what is going on with the Flyers, and the situation with the coaching and all that, which is interesting as it plays out here. I don't get a sense that Hextall's in trouble yet.
I'll make a prediction. I think Ron Hextall will chat tonight to say that Dave Hextall is safe. I think he's going to do that.
Yeah, that's good. That's very likely. Hextall has shown a lot of patience. In a situation like this.
Yeah, but isn't that always the thing that happens just before they fire the coach?
It is with a lot of GMs. It hasn't been the way with Hextall, so we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, what Hextall does. I mean, the other option is, the way Hextall looks at it too is who else is out there? Like, where would he go? Like,
right.
Well, the top name, because we were talking about. I can't remember what coaching. Oh, it might have been Edmonton. Is like Dave Tippett. Dave Tippett's the big name out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think Hextall would do that. I mean, actually, I think Hextall would go to Scott Gordon as an interim because Gordon is already with Lehigh and already knows the coaches and the players and a lot of these young players, right? If you're trying to unlock these young players, Gordon knows them.
Maybe Carlos Beltran will be.
But here's the thing. I don't know how much you saw of the game.
Yeah, I saw the game last night.
Okay. So I've been, and Bill and I were a little at odds with this because I've said that, Claude Giroux is in decline for faceoffs. And that is true statistically, although it's not like massive jumping off point. Every year he's gone down the last 3 years. Yesterday's faceoff, that defensive zone faceoff, he had to win against Crosby. He had to.
Yeah.
And he got beat handily. Like it was just Crosby did exactly what he wanted with the puck and set up the game-winning goal. And that's why, and like Mike astutely pointed out offline, he said, hey, Couturier was on the ice forever because they were killing off a penalty, so he couldn't be used for that faceoff. But that's where you needed Claude Giroux to actually come through. Couldn't do it.
Yeah. No, you're right about that. He definitely has – faceoffs have gone down, and you also the situation and his defense has gone down, I believe, as well. But he's had a great year offensively still.
Yes,
he's still got tons going for him. But
he does. What do you think now, Ek? Yeah, I was talking to Mike about this. The Gostisbehere shot that Rust blocked and eventually took for the breakaway. My issue was, I don't think Gostisbehere got on his horse quick enough to try and get him. Like we've seen a lot of guys. Great defenseman. Like I've seen Brian Leetch with catch-up speed, Chris Chelios, and it just, Brian Rust is fast, but it just seemed like Shane Gostisbehere should have been able to do something to make that shot harder, and he couldn't. And
my assertion was that Gostisbehere was caught flat-footed, and when you have one guy in motion going the other way and the other guy is flat-footed, it's no matter how fast he is, it's really tough for that guy to catch up.
He was, but it's hard to tell because you have to watch it kind of in full speed to really get it. But, I think his reaction time to the whole thing was slow. Like, I do
too. I really do.
He was caught looking at his shot a little bit.
I think that's what it was and that's what I said to Mike. I felt like it was that because, like I said, Rust is a very speedy player, but I just felt like all Gostisbehere could do was dive and wave his stick. I felt like he should have been able to make a better play on it than that. But that didn't cost him the game. That's just one play in a game. But here's the other thing. Pittsburgh realized they could just literally live in the crease and get a goal when they needed it.
Yeah, I really felt like, there's a couple things, and these are a couple things that are, that you got to take Hextall to task on here a little bit because, one is, okay, they've got a defense of all the same player, and that's a tough situation.
Well, Andrew McDonald was back, and that was another point of contention with fans.
Well, he's another of the same player. He's another. They have these are all offensive-minded defensemen, and a couple of them are very good defensively as well. But there's no real size back there. They don't have like a Jake Muzzin or anything like that back there. They have they have Moran, who's been up and already sent back down again. They need somebody to clear the crease. They need somebody to, especially with the kind of goalie they have in Brian Elliott, like who's back in his net and relies heavily on his reflexes, doesn't play angles very well, and is always in it, and can make incredible saves, but also can look really bad at times. So, I think the handling of the defense has been pretty bad in general. The way it's gone through.
They gave up 50 shots, so that's
and I think that's part of it. This team is not that great defensively from your forwards either. But then the other aspect, besides Couturier,
that is another key thing. Like if we look at the Penguins, right? We could always say, hey, their defense isn't great. They got a bunch of puck movers, but they've got great defensive forwards too.
They do, no. And remember, the Flyers' best defensive forward is Sean Couturier, who has now been put on the top line and has done incredibly well there. But his job is not checking right now. Like when you play the Penguins, Couturier is always out there to stop Malkin. That was Couturier's job of the season. It's a very different situation. He's done an incredible job there, and Couturier obviously has the skills to pull it off. But you actually have taken off your best defensive forward,
right?
And that kills him.
Out of the blue, let me ask this question: do you think that Ron Hextall will let Nolan Patrick go and play for Team Canada, the World Junior?
It's possible.
I say it's 50-50 right now.
I think it would be a good idea.
Yeah, I think, again, here's the thing. So if he does do it, the knee-jerk reaction in town is going to be, why are you doing that? We're trying to compete for the playoffs. And to me, that's the answer is he's doing the right thing for the player, because the playoffs are just a bonus for this Flyers team if they make it. Yeah. They're still building, and if fans don't want to realize that, then they're not really paying attention. They're just hoping.
And Nolan, and it's not like he's going to Finland or going to Sweden. It's Buffalo.
Yeah, I mean, it is like Finland or Sweden if you go to Buffalo.
Yeah. People have to realize, that like the biggest thing with young players is confidence, right? So confidence is everything for these guys.
And Patrick missed the World Junior last year with an injury, so I think that would probably be a good move for them.
I think the confidence he could show in that situation, I mean, it could bring him confidence. It
could bring him on the back end when he comes back.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can do something. I mean, I don't think there's any reason not to do it, to be honest. But it would be.
But I'm telling you, the knee-jerk reaction around town will be awful.
Okay,
well, it will be. But the last thing about this team I want to mention is I just think that I think Haxtell has to be held accountable a little bit more is the goaltending, the handling of the goaltending, which I think has been, Elliott has played well at times, but
yeah, thank you.
But and I know the reality of the situation is, you have a backup goalie now that you've really put into bad situations, and you have him, who has not played well at all. So you have in Neuwirth, you have a goalie who has lost almost all of his confidence, and you put him into one game, you pull him out. There's certain things that's just kind of like they really are in a spot now. It's a bad situation. I mean, they really have relied too heavily on Elliott at this point.
I think they have. The interesting thing is, though, a couple nights ago, Haxtell gave the quote that said, "Hey, I know we've lost X amount of games straight because now it's up to 8, but we have managed to get some points then," and fans flipped out.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if he was necessarily saying that as a rallying point. I think he was just saying that as a fact, but he is at the point now with the fan base that he's lost the fan base. Like, the fans don't like him now.
Can you imagine Haxtell ever saying anything as a rallying point? Like when you say that,
right.
That is not in Haxtell's world. Like, that is
right.
Everything is total fact. He's not gonna rally the troops.
But he's lost the fan base, don't you think?
A lot of them, yeah. I mean, if you follow Twitter, he has. I think there are some that when you talk to people just in the general, I think there are some that still are okay with him. But right now, I mean, the couple things that he's done, like the Andrew McDonald thing, is the Andrew McDonald's a real hot button issue in Philadelphia all the time.
It's the hottest of hot buttons.
It's kind of unfair. I mean, it
is.
Andrew McDonald has not played. I mean, forget his salary just for a little while, and just realize that when he gets in there, he doesn't play that terribly. And
in the cap world, you're asking too much of fans that forget $5.5 million.
I don't know.
Really,
it doesn't mean anything that he makes that money, and it's like to the Flyers, he does come in, and he actually the fact
we don't talk about the money Mike makes every show, right? I mean,
wait, do I have a microscope?
Yeah. So, but yeah, 8 lost games or 8 games in a row where you've gone, whether you got a point or not, you ended up losing the game.
Right.
It's not good for your.
It's the modern day loss. You still get points.
Yeah, but it's crazy that they're only like one game under NHL 500 at this point, which is just ridiculous.
Well, let's switch to the other team because there's just so many directions that we can go from the two situations, and let's start with the one that happened before the game, because I think it's Jason Mackey, who's a Pittsburgh reporter, reported that Ian Cole had been healthy scratched for 3 games in a row, and that he was being shopped. Now, Sullivan today comes out and says, "I think sometimes you guys make it up as you go. I don't know where this stuff comes from. Ian Cole's a part of the Pittsburgh Penguins. He's a part of our team. He's a valuable piece." After that, he's definitely getting traded.
It sounds like it, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean that's pumping up he's okay. Then why hasn't he played 3 games in a row if he's healthy? What, Chad Ruedel is up for the Norris? I mean, what this is you're keeping a guy, and probably you're keeping a guy healthy so you can trade him. You don't want the guy to get hurt. And
the Penguins are fascinating because they really are a team. They're back to this Penguins team that doesn't care about the regular season, except
they're just all they're doing is retooling for that run.
Yeah, and you look at like last night. I've watched a lot of Penguins games this year, as we probably all have at different points. That comeback last night was the playoff Pittsburgh Penguins.
Yes.
They decided they're playing.
Yeah, they turned it on fully last night.
They were pissed off that their goalie had been hurt.
Yeah.
Flyers who they're pissed off at, and they went after the Flyers with their full fury, and there was no way the Flyers could hold them back. Like
No.
if the Penguins were down 3 goals in the last minute, they would have gotten 3 goals in the last minute to tie it. It was just like there was no question that you saw the Penguins. So when you see that, and then you watch them in that regular situation, you see them playing at like this preseason level, kind of almost. It's interesting, and it really is kind of frustrating from an NHL perspective, like to watch all these games where they're good enough to hang in the playoff race, but they really don't care.
They are. But now that Murray is hurt.
Yes,
they're not going to be.
No, it's a big deal for sure.
They're not going to be able to play that game anymore, and we know that Bob McKenzie's reporting 2-4. But I watched that play over again a few times. The first thing is, look, when Voracek loses his edge, he goes into your heart. He's a big man. Jake Voracek could hurt you, and Murray not only balled up, but he definitely hit the post, which I think with his right leg. So either he's got a groin and a knee, right? It's either one or both.
Or a high ankle sprain. It could
or
be.
high ankle. But the thing is, I think 4 weeks is like the best case scenario of him coming back. So I think now they have to go get a goalie like today.
Now this is the thing. If you look at their situation, they can go one of 2 ways. And Russ and I were talking about this before the show. They can go for a stopgap number 1, which I think will be really tough to find. But Russ has an idea of one guy that he tweeted out, or they can go for a veteran backup to basically plug the hole, share the duties with Tristan Jarry for 5-6 weeks, whatever. Hope that they get through that relatively close to a playoff spot, and then move forward. I think it's easier to get the backup than it is the stopgap number 1. But Russ, who was the guy that you mentioned?
Yeah, I think Rutherford gets on the phone and he calls for Cam Ward. That's what I think, and I think Carolina would do it because at the end of the day, Cam Ward's a UFA after the season. They're going to want to shed salary whether they're a playoff team or not. Darling is their goalie. They've paid Darling. So there's no way that they're going to do anything else goalie-wise with Darling. He's their guy. They could get assets here for him. They probably don't think they're making it to the Stanley Cup. They won't say it publicly, but I don't think they think they're a Stanley Cup team. So at the end of the day, this is how you can get the maximum amount for Cam Ward now with somebody you're familiar with. Well, Rutherford will actually give them value. He might give them someone like Daniel Sprong, and it serves both purposes. I just think with Murray now, with the way he's been getting injured, even though it's a different scenario each time, every year he gets injured, I think the problem is, you think he's back in 4 weeks, but then if he gets hurt around the deadline, there's no way Pittsburgh can get a goalie good enough to get to the Stanley Cup. I think they've got to look ahead and say, we already have a problem with the backup since the Emmy didn't pan out. If we get Cam Ward, we're set for the rest of the year, whether Murray gets hurt or not.
But I don't think they can get, unless Carolina is open to that. I don't think that they can get that goalie that you're talking about until the offseason, either free agency or when teams are more willing to make a deal, and then they can go out and back up their situation. But right. I'll give you 2 other scenarios.
And the one thing is, Cam Ward's got I think a limited no trade, but I doubt he would turn down Pittsburgh.
No, I doubt that either. But here are 2 situations where. Former assistant GM in Pittsburgh, who's now the GM in Buffalo, and Jason Botterill. They have Linus Ullmark in the minors ready, who's played in the NHL before. They signed Chad Johnson to a 1-year deal. Johnson has been in Pittsburgh before. He's proved that he can be that 1B goaltender who can play a bunch of games and can play well. I could see that. Or I could see a team like Toronto where you got Curtis McElhinney as their backup. You've got Calvin Pickard, who they picked up from Vegas, and Garrett Sparks, who are both under 2 goals against in the AHL right now. So they might be willing to trade either Pickard or McElhinney if Pittsburgh goes the direction of just getting a backup to get through this. If they're looking for a number 1, it might be Ward, but I saw Ward give up 4 goals on 16 shots against Toronto last week. He's not a number 1 anymore.
Yeah, but they're only asking him to be a number 1 when he has to be. And if they get the wrong goalie now, they could miss the playoffs.
I got the goalie for you. This is the one I heard, and that makes sense to me.
Wait, if you're going to say Chad Johnson, remember Sullivan had Chad Johnson before.
I'm not. I'm going to say Antti Raanta.
Antti Raanta.
Yep. That's the goalie because
if they do that, if Phoenix does that, and I won't say Arizona rather, if they do that, and I'm not going to say they won't, they literally have given up the season, and you don't even know who the goalie is anymore.
It's the Rasmus Dahlin sweepstakes is basically what it is.
I mean, who would be the goalie?
Wedgwood.
Wedgwood, yeah.
That's insane. I mean, and I like Scott Wedgwood. I mean, I do. But if they're that sure that they've made a mistake on Ranta, that he can't handle the number one duties after 25 games,
they have a GM who likes to make moves towards the future when you're not going anywhere this year, and that's the issue right now. So I think that you have to say, okay, I mean, they haven't signed Ranta yet, like it's not like they've extended him. So if we think that we all kind of assumed that he was going to be extended when he got there, that they were going to make him the goalie. He was going to be the goalie in the future.
I was looking at situations, and not to say that he's a great goaltender, but basically just to plug a hole and maybe they can get something out of him. I mean, Eddie Lack fell out of favor in Calgary. He's in the minors now. Louis Domingue got traded from Arizona to Tampa. I mean, there are guys who have played significant time in the NHL in recent years that Pittsburgh could go out and relatively cheaply get. But if they're looking for what Russ is saying that they need to get, which is somebody who's a legitimate stopgap for a number one. I mean, other than Peter Budaj in Tampa, who I don't think Tampa will want to give up, I don't see where they get that other than Cam Ward. And I don't know whether he wants to leave Carolina or whether Carolina wants to trade him, because Scott Darling is not 100%. I have qualms.
But they paid him whether he's getting another year, no matter what.
True.
To figure it out.
It'll be up to Cam Ward in that situation.
Yeah. Now the thing is that with Cole's the reason, ignoring what Sullivan said, the reason that Cole is probably on the trade block is because he's making $2.1 million this year. He's an RFA at the end of the year. He's won 2 Stanley Cups with them. He's going to be asking for some money, and more than likely with their cap situation, they can't pay him that money. So if that's the case, after they've paid Schultz, they've got Letang come back now on the payroll. Mata's deal is over $4 million. I think they paid Dumoulin a pretty good chunk. I mean, they're spending a lot of money on their defense, and they just don't want to pay Ian Cole what he probably deserves. Mm-hmm. And they're looking for help up the middle. They got Riley Sheehan in that 3-way deal with New York and Detroit, I believe it was, or it was no, it was not. It wasn't a 3-way deal. It was one deal, and then one deal went back the other way. But I don't think Riley Sheen's a third line center. I think he's more of a 4th line center. And
I think that's fair.
Yeah, I think he's more of a 4th line center too, but he could be a 3rd line center.
And they're looking. I think they're looking for more offense. They're looking for more.
I'll give you the trade.
Nick Bonino replacement.
But again, I don't know if they're going to trade in division. But if the Islanders aren't going to re-sign Josh Bailey, you could trade Bailey for Ian Cole.
Yeah, I don't think
the Islanders do need a little more help on defense based on their goaltending. They do.
I think the perfect fit for Pittsburgh with Kessel there would be Tyler Bozak, but I don't think the Leafs are trading him right now.
No, I don't think so either.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, the Penguins are interesting when you watch them. They do have holes. There's no question about it. They have holes. They're holes that have been created by winning. You can see it.
It's holes created by not enough cap space.
Yeah,
but they cover up for it very well.
They do. I mean, they cover up for it extremely well, and they play hard. They're good. They play well-oiled. They're a well-oiled machine in a lot of ways. I mean, there's no question that they're getting the right contributions from the right players at all times right now.
Yeah.
But I think that they are still the team to beat. There's no two ways about it. You can take any.
Now it depends. If Tristan Jarry's the goalie for the next 4 weeks, they could be beaten.
As long as they get to the playoffs,
they might not get there, Eck. I'm saying they're in danger, and I'm not saying it's because of Jarry. We don't know what Jarry will be this early in the NHL. What I'm just saying is, in these 4 weeks, if they were to go on a losing streak, they might not be able to recover.
Right.
Don't know. I don't know about that because I think that they can do whatever they. I think they can kind of do whatever they want.
Not without a goalie.
Yeah, I mean, how far? I mean, they're right now. Where are they? They're sitting.
I think they're just outside of the wild card. I think they're like 1 point out of the wild
just inside the wild card, according to
okay.
So they're right.
And you couldn't even name me their goalie behind Jarry. You couldn't.
Yeah, no question about that. So
Casey DeSmith, I think it is.
Yeah.
They have to stay within shooting distance. They have to stay within a certain amount. But
right, which to my mind lends it more to them going after getting a serviceable backup who can play more than a backup normally can. That's what I say. Chad Johnson did that with Calgary. He did that with Buffalo a few years ago, and I don't think he would be expensive because Buffalo stinks. And Buffalo is probably going to be, in the lottery, and they're probably going to start. It's a little early, but you might have an opportunity to maybe get yourself, that's saying you're getting Daniel Sprong for Chad Johnson, but there's probably a prospect or two that Botterill knows from the Penguins that he probably would like to get, and if the cost is a veteran backup goaltender, I don't see why he would have a problem.
That's the thing. I don't think you can get Sprong for Johnson.
No.
But I think Rutherford might give Sprong for Ward because he knows what Ward is. Sullivan might know what he could do with him because it's not like Cam Ward can't play. Cam Ward still had some nice games last year. He also now with the way Pittsburgh plays, he it could be a good change for him.
Yeah, that could be. Here's a weird one.
Okay.
The Penguins make a trade to get Marc-Andre Fleury back.
He's not even healthy yet.
He's not healthy right now. No, but
I don't think they would get him because he's damaged.
Yeah, I mean, it's intriguing.
Here's the thing. I don't want to bring it up. Nobody's talking about it.
Yeah.
We have to assume at this point it's probably post-concussion.
Yeah. I would think it has to.
Because anybody with a regular concussion would have been back weeks and weeks ago.
Right. They said 4 weeks, and he got hurt in I think it was around the 10th or 12th of October. So he should be back by now. So, okay, they're being careful, and that's great.
But he's probably having symptoms still.
And Vegas is playing wonderfully right now, but better than anybody expected. But they've been doing it with Maxim Lagacé and now Malcolm Subban. And Oscar Dansk was supposed to be day-to-day with a knee injury, and he's been out for a month. So
I think for the amount that they would ask for Fleury, it would – because of now his health reasons, you would not trade for him.
Yeah. No, I agree. I do agree, but it's one of these things, because we all think of Vegas as they're not going to.
Here's the update on Fleury, which is crazy. He is out with a concussion. He resumed on-ice activities, which literally is not much, and that was 2 weeks ago, and he is yet to practice with his teammates. That was as of 3 or 4 days ago.
So, I don't know how much you guys talked about it yesterday, but I did write about Zdeno Chara yesterday.
No, we didn't talk about Chara yesterday.
We asked Kevin at the end of the show about Chara, and I mean, right now he says with where Boston is, which is still sort of in the mix. If Detroit's in third place in the Atlantic Division, then third place is up for grabs.
Right.
That they probably wouldn't trade Chara if they fall out. And Kevin didn't say this. I'm saying this. If they fall out and it's a rental situation, and he clearly wants to stay in Boston, but if he's doing the organization a favor and says, I'll go to Washington or LA or someplace, make a playoff run, and then come back.
He would do that for sure.
He would do that because I think he'd be doing the organization a favor, and it would probably be a quid pro quo of like, I'm coming back. I'll only do this if you re-sign me, and there you go.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of talk about it, and about the possibility of it for sure. And LA and Washington and Edmonton are three places that have been brought up.
I don't know how much you get for him, though. I mean, don't get me wrong. He's a Hall of Famer. He's a monstrosity, but he has slowed down remarkably. Could he help a team that needs help on defense?
I mean, you got to remember. Philly got a conditional second, I believe, for Timonen.
Two.
Yeah.
2 seconds.
So he'll get that at least.
Yeah, I mean, and if you're not, it depends where Boston is, of course, and I do agree that Boston's the kind of team that will.
But I don't think Boston's trading him. I think Boston's going to be in it all year.
Yeah, they might be. It's hard to say. I mean, the Caps really are intriguing to me with him because of Chara's history against the Penguins has been so solid, and the Capitals are definitely gearing towards that. There's no choice.
The Capitals need help on defense. The losses of Alzner. I mean, lesser extent Shattenkirk because Shattenkirk was and Nate Schmidt to Vegas. They lost their depth. Their third pairing against Toronto last Saturday was Chorney and Madison Bowie. So I mean I like Madison Bowie as a prospect, but I don't think he's right. Maybe he's a year or two away from being a fully formed NHL defenseman. If their goal is to compete for the Stanley Cup, then they're probably going to need help on defense and help at forward too, because they're playing Devontae Smith-Pelly and Jay Beagle and Alex Chase on a lot of minutes too.
Oh, tons of minutes.
Yeah, Chase's playing a lot. It's true. Here's the thing, though, and this is something where it used to happen all the time, and I don't think it happens anymore. What X said in passing was always true in that, and this would happen a lot with the Rangers and Flyers. If the Flyers did X, the Rangers would do Y, and the Islanders would do Z, because they all would look at it and say, well, we have to sort of gear up to beat them if we play them in the playoffs. No team seems to do that anymore.
They can't do it anymore because of the cap. You can't do tit for tat anymore. You really can't.
No, I mean, I think Washington does it. I mean, I think they've done it a couple times. I think they got Oshie to play against the thing. I think that he was a player they went and got because I think they got Justin Williams to play against the Penguins. I think there's certain things that they went to.
I think the last example of it was last year. Okay, they made the Shattenkirk deal to prevent the Rangers or to prevent Pittsburgh from getting it.
If you remember, they were so yeah.
But how did that turn out? He played bottom pairing minutes for Washington, and basically
it didn't turn out well.
Right, in the first and second round, he was basically a power play specialist. They were playing Schmidt more than they were playing in terms of minutes. They were playing Schmidt more than they played Shattenkirk.
Yeah, that's insane. But I think that if there's one team that does seem to be obsessed with any other team right now, it is the Capitals and the Penguins. I mean, and for good reason. The Capitals have had some killer seasons, and the Penguins have just taken it out, each time. And,
I don't see that. That's the thing, and maybe I'm wrong here, because you always have to say that the team that wins the Stanley Cup is the team that you have to beat. But if you look at the Metro right now, I mean Columbus. I mean, to a lesser extent, New Jersey, I think they may come down to earth. The Islanders with Tavares on a salary run and Josh Bailey on a salary run. Those are the teams that Washington and Pittsburgh have to match up with. It's not matching up to Pittsburgh, at least not right now, because they've shown there's a Stanley Cup hangover and now the goaltending situation. I think teams have to be looking at Tampa Bay as the team to sort of match up against in the East, because with Stamkos and with Kucherov going crazy.
Well, no, I think that's true, but I think there's something to be said for the fact that when you've been eliminated so many times by the same team, in the situation, that does play into your mindset. And the Capitals really see it as if they're going to be one of the top three teams in the division, and the Penguins are going to be one of the top three teams in the division, so they're going to have to play each other in the first or second round, and there's no getting around it. That's how they see it. So, they really don't look at Tampa yet because they don't feel like they're going to be a wild card team having to play Tampa, so they have to. And it doesn't matter to match up against Tampa. You can't get by Pittsburgh in their mind.
Well, right now, if Pittsburgh and Washington matched up in the playoffs this year after matching up the last 2 years, it's going to be like the Thrilla in Manila. It's going to be two guys who are punch drunk and on their almost on their last legs in Ollie and Frazier, because I think right now Pittsburgh has got some flaws. And so does Washington. They may be a great battle, but they're not the teams that they were last year or 2 years ago.
True.
Yeah. We're going to try to get Danny Briere onto our show. He's got a new autobiography out in French, but it is out there.
He's going to speak English to us, right?
Yes, we assume we're going to do that. Yes. He's off on Michel Therrien quite a bit in the article.
I could imagine.
Shocking.
One of his quotes, being that Michel Therrien once showed him a video and said, "No one in the room respects you. No one wants to play with you." This is not he's not the only player who said this kind of stuff about Therrien, but I just thought that it's interesting. I really want to hear Danny's not like a vengeful type person, so interesting to hear what the other stuff is. I definitely think
the much loved Michel Therrien.
Hopefully it'll be translated into English at some point here. So we have the Landeskog suspension as well yesterday. One interesting is Tkachuk now is holding the record for most games drawn by suspension this year.
Yeah, but I thought Tkachuk's were marked today because Toronto's playing Calgary and the Toronto media were asking about this, and he said something to the effect of, "Well, no, you never want to see anybody suspended." I always think that like he's sort of laying the groundwork for like when
a lot of time at home with his dad when he was a kid. That's why.
Yeah.
when he does something, he wants the same treatment from the NHL. That all I know is that the reason reason Landeskog got 4 games was because of it wasn't the first cross check, it was the second that he comes square on his neck, and that's where it gets dangerous because you're talking about one well placed cross check on somebody's neck, and you're talking paralysis.
Right.
Yeah.
And God forbid.
Really, really dangerous.
The thing about Tkachuk, though, is he could bring out the worst in somebody playing against him because he is a world-class trash talker.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, there's no question about that. He's definitely a huge trash talker. The last thing I wanted to – I don't know if you saw the article by Chris Johnson on Sportsnet, but it was really kind of good about Johnny Gaudreau.
Chris Johnson, I've never heard of him. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. and saying,
reporter Chris on Twitter, you should follow.
Johnny Gaudreau's number, rebirth, and basically has everything to do with the crackdown on slashing this year in the NHL, and I think that's a really accurate thing. I do agree that you're seeing.
Yeah, I think that was one way of slowing him down. Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I think that's been a big factor.
I mean, it did break his hand last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's been one of the most annoying things this year is the ridiculousn's of the over accentuation of the slashing calls. They've been it's so bad. I mean, it's like tap penalty. It's that bad. It's like you don't even have to make contact. It's like as bad as like the things that we saw in the NFL this week where a guy got a 15-minute personal foul and he didn't even hit the guy.
Yeah,
really, that's no reason to do it. Like that's the thing. Like I don't have it.
There is. I mean, they're trying to curb players from doing it, but it's been accepted as a way to check a player for years.
No, that's ridiculous. Like that. I have no problem with it because I mean it's a ridiculous way to. I mean, you're injuring your talent day after day after day. I mean,
yeah, I think right now the slashing was the 21st century answer to the old spearing from the old league when Andy Bathgate wrote a New York Times article because he was getting speared so much because he was one of those good players that tried not to, retaliate but couldn't take guys spearing him anymore. And so he was a top scorer, right? That was how you slowed him down. Well, this is a fair point as to how you slew Gaudreau down. You broke his hand.
Right, and back in the day when Boreas Salming was terrorized by the Philadelphia Flyers in the mid-'70s, the only way he stopped them from doing it was becoming an assassin with a stick. He became one of the biggest stick guys in the league. And okay, so all I'm saying is right now the increase in the slashing calls to me is the NHL's way of increasing scoring. They're giving more power plays to teams. I don't think I haven't seen the stats, but I think that a number of slashing calls has probably stayed even right now.
Power plays are up, like I've seen that.
Right, and the thing is, maybe they decrease as the season goes along, but I don't think it's going to be because slashing calls are going down. I think it's because they're going to stop calling them. And that's what we're
expecting. See, here's the thing. Now, this is where it becomes dangerous, right? Because just like we all used to think, well, they're never going to call a penalty in overtime, the league calls penalties in overtime now.
Yeah.
So there's going to be times in the playoffs where people are going to be like, well, they're just going to swallow the whistle now, and they may not. They may keep this going.
I will be genuinely shocked if later this year we don't go the way that we did in, say, 2007 when obstruction started to be allowed again. Because
but you get my argument, right? Because I've been with so many people like where it's been like an overtime game and they're all like, well, I guess it's just going to play out now, and then there's a penalty. We see regular power play, in power plays in overtime now that we never used to see growing up.
Sure. Yeah. No, I'll grant your point. Yes, we will see calls in overtime, and if it's one of these phantom slashing calls and it's the right market, you're going to have like an entire city go bat crap crazy.
Yes.
Yeah, you will. I mean, but I get this gut feeling. At the beginning of the year, I thought it would have gone away. We're this far into the season. I don't think it's going away.
Do that in Toronto, in a Montreal-Toronto playoff series, And if there's an NHL official in the arena, it's going to be a reenactment of Clarence Campbell in Montreal in 1950.
Oh, stop! You're always so dramatic. You got to pull out the biggest, worst thing that's ever happened. Come on, man.
Well, on that note, we got to get going. But thanks so much for watching the show. Remember, you can support us at patreon.com/hockey. We really appreciate that. It keeps the show going more than it now than ever. So please do support the show in any way you can. Enjoy the games tonight. The rumor chart will be out later today. So tomorrow we'll hopefully be able to get together and chat about the rumor chart in some detail.
That'd be great.
A lot of names involved, and it's fun now that we're hitting into December, and we'll get to talking about that.
And don't bother putting Ian Cole on there because he'll probably be traded the next 24 hours.
Yeah, I can tell you he's already on there, so we're in good shape. So that's all the time we have tonight. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will talk to you soon. Thanks for watching, guys.